Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lorraine Allen, Councillor Lorraine Allen, and it's my privilege tonight to be chair of this meeting. It's our special committee of the whole meeting, Monday, July 6th, and I'm going to start by just calling the councillors' attendance. Mayor Panko.
Here.
Councillor Alford.
Here.
Councillor Brennan.
Present.
Councillor Dwyer.
Present.
Councillor McGuire. Councillor McGuire.
DM.
Present. Can you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
And Councillor McKenna.
Present.
Thank you. And I'm going to have Director Manhire just do the attendance for the staff that are with us tonight. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have Director Costello, we have Director Dunlop, we have Senior Planner Carl Grenke, we have Chief Cheeseborough, and we have Jennifer Miller, the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism.
Thank you. Are there any there's no regrets. Are there any amendments to the agenda this evening? Seeing none. Any disclosure of monetary interest? There are no delegations, and I do need an adoption of minutes, so I need it moved by someone. Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Thank you. And now CAO or Director's Reports. Are there any this evening?
I believe we have three.
Okay.
Would you like to start?
Go ahead. Thank you. Who's going to go first?
Chief Cheeseborough, I believe.
Oh, thank you. Welcome, Chief.
Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe our meeting last week on Thursday was our 27th meeting we've held since this pandemic has started, and slightly prior to that, I think we've incorporated a few of our senior management meetings leading up to the declaration of the state of emergency. We reviewed the statistics for both Ontario as well as across Canada and Glenark, Leeds, Grenville. And the results from last Thursday to today, there's been very little increases with regards to the number of cases that have been reported. There's been slight increases in the death rate, but the recovery rates have finally outnumbered the cases that have been reported. Part of our discussion last week, we discussed the outbreaks that Kingston had in the nail salons. And the reaction to that, there was approximately 28 individuals that were confirmed to have contracted the COVID virus. Approximately 1,000 people were notified who had attended the various nail salons to go in for testing. The local health unit inspectors have been out and ensuring that the proper protocols are in place, certainly for the ones in Lanark, Leeds, Grenville, and they're going to continue to follow up as well as monitoring what's going on in the city. Following that, we discussed patios and entertainment at the patios, and it was made clear that entertainers can play near outside patios that have been established, as long as there's no singing or dancing in any of the dining areas of the restaurants. We discussed the wearing of masks. The Medical Officer of Health has the authority pursuant to Section 22 under the Ontario Health Protection and Promotion Act to mandate the wearing of masks. And I believe Mayor Panko is going to make that announcement tonight. That's been put out through the current health unit. If Section 22 order is invoked, which we can have some questions regarding that when I'm done, it'll be released in sequence with the policies and protocols established by the Medical Officer of Health. So the Medical Officer of Health for Lanark, Leeds, Grenville has been in discussions with other Medical Officers of Health to determine what the proper processes and what the proper policies are, and to come up with a consistent approach in how we're going to handle this situation. The Municipal Emergency Control Group is waiting to see if the province will maintain their state of emergency past July the 15th. Now, the next line that I included in that was my personal thought on that, just based on what we're seeing going on in Ontario, but more importantly, what we're seeing going on in the United States. I expect that this will be extended. And I put out the September 1st date as a potential date based on the return to school, if and when that's going to happen. I think that's going to coincide with the possible release of stage 3 if we get to stage 3. And again, there's a lot of variables that are going to affect the decision whether or not we do go to stage 3. The CAO and the Director of Corporate Services presented their return to work policy. It was extremely well received. It's a very detailed policy, easy to follow. That was released to all staff. It did get vetted through the Joint Health and Safety Committee, and there was no issues. There was a couple minor changes, but certainly Director Costello has done an exceptional job with regards to putting that together. There is no return to work date as of yet. Again, there's a number of variables that will or will not affect what date we choose, when staff are going to be brought back in, when the municipal offices are going to reopen again. And again, that's going to be contingent on what direction the province is taking and what the effects are of the current numbers. If we see a spike in the numbers, I can assure you that there's probably going to be a delay when we reopen. Community Services working on the summer day camp with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Ross Street Daycare is open and currently has a capacity of 34. The province has announced financial support to cover spaces lost and enhanced protocols if you're unable to get children into those daycare facilities. Protection shields were put on display for management when we did a tour last week to take a look if staff are concerned about the spacing in between where they're going to be working or having other members in their offices. There were shields that were put out that they could take a look at and opt to choose to have those on their desks. We did finally get confirmation from Trinity Church. They cannot offer any space for cooling stations at this point in time. And we have not heard back from any of the other facilities that we did contact. The health unit will be sending out messaging today respecting the humidity and heat warnings. The key messaging for this pandemic is to spread the word, not the virus. And our last item is the meeting, our next meeting, which will be July the 9th. Just to get back to the one item with regards to the wearing of masks. They've taken a regional approach, as I've read it, which is different than what other areas have done. Other areas have opted for the Section 22, which the medical officer of health has authority to do. But reading the literature committee today, it's being done under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Either way, at the end of the day, the results will be the same. They will be producing a list of areas that you are going to have to wear a mask if you do go. And I did print off a list from the internet, but it was pertaining to Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington. And there's probably a dozen items on there where you will be required to wear a mask. And certainly Kingston is enforcing it, Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington. The biggest concern that I had, and I'll be very frank, the concern that I had was the municipality's ability to enforce the order. If we currently only have a number or a schedule with regards to bylaw, there have been discussions with the chief of police regarding enforcement. Enforcement is a major concern with regards to on how we're going to do this. So there are still some questions to be answered, but as we forge ahead, I think this is going to become common practice, and we could be seeing this for quite a while. That is my update tonight, Madam Chairman.
Any questions for the chief? Mayor Penko?
Yes, Chief Cheeseborough. As we've discussed at our emergency control group meetings, the need for cooling station, your update tonight that Trinity does not have the ability, and we're still waiting for a reply from other organizations. I mean, the level of concern is growing. We've been through a number of days of 30+ degree temperatures. This week is going to get even hotter, especially towards the end of the week. Sure. A lot of our citizens live in small apartments that do not have great air circulation, no air conditioning. And tended to rely in the past on some public spaces, whether that would be a Tim Hortons or McDonald's or our library or even our Welcome Center, to get some relief from extremely high temperatures and high humidity, to the point where the health unit has, as you know, has now indicated, let's put it a warning. I guess I'm looking to everyone on the screen. I believe we need to find some solution to try and help provide our vulnerable citizens with an opportunity for relief here. And I don't know what that may be based on the restrictions that are in place, but it's a challenge I think we need an answer to very quickly.
Thank you.
Councilor McKenna, did you have your hand up to answer Mayor Panko or add to it?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, I know a number of years ago when I worked in the Community Health Center, this issue came up. We identified 2 people who were really struggling. And now this is the informal network and the community network, but I put a call out for small window air conditioners. I had 5 offers in 3 hours and a couple of volunteers. And now that's complicated in COVID. You're asking people to go into people's houses, but there is a non-formal response. And I hope those of you who have got spare air conditioners, if there was some way of hearing about a need, maybe one of our civic groups could organize that, or a church group. But I had no trouble acquiring 3 or 4 and just helping out individuals like that. But that's the informal system. I know the town can't get involved in that, but I wouldn't rule that option out.
Thank you for that. Chief?
One of the items that we have been hopeful and are looking forward to getting an answer from the province. In the event we do have a large number of individuals that are going to require this, whether or not municipal buildings that are currently closed could be used as cooling centers. The other thing that we have to be aware of, some of the vulnerable occupants also have respiratory problems and breathing problems. Those individuals that have that are exempt from wearing masks. So if you have a respiratory problem or you have a problem where that mask is going to interfere or make your symptoms worse or your breathing more difficult, certainly through the KFLNA and through the health unit, you're not going to be required to wear them. So if in fact we did come up with an alternative solution, that would be another concern, just having people without masks in groups. And again, depending on the group size or the number that we'd be looking for. But that is a concern, and I know that it will be discussed Thursday. Probably not the best answer you're looking for, but we're hoping to have answers prior to that if the province gets back to me by tomorrow.
Councillor Dwyer, did you have a comment to make?
I did, thanks. I had a comment in response to Sean's point, and then I had a general inquiry. Can I do both right now, or would you rather just?
Sure. No, go ahead.
Thank you. So my comment to Sean's point was that in addition to indoor cooling stations, I think it would be prudent of the town to encourage residents to continue to make use of our water resources as well, particularly the splash pad. There's tons and tons of families that make use of that as a cooling center, and it's something that we can do. It's open to the public, maybe even extending the hours of operation on the splash pad so that we can use it later in the evening or earlier in the morning. I think right now, Art, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the water gets turned on at 8 or 9, but it's certainly not uncommon for families to be out there before that, particularly if you have kids like mine that wake up at 5 a.m. But even the beaches, and last week while we were off on vacation, I noticed huge numbers of people who were down not only on our own waterfront, but in beaches in the area down at Rideau Ferry and Westport. We're so blessed to have the water system running through our community. It's a great opportunity to make use of not only the recreation, but also as a cooling center and as a way to get out of your house, you know, particularly if you've got respiratory problems. Air conditioning isn't always the best solution. So being able to get outside, particularly when the humidity is a little bit lower, might be a viable option. The second question I had, and I'm not sure if Chief Cheeseborough can answer it or not, but I understand last week the province passed Ontario Regulation 345 in response to patios. Can you comment on whether or not this changes the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago, and whether or not we're seeing an increase in the number of applications for outdoor patio spaces now that the province is dictating an easier process for approvals?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, we have not seen any significant increase in the request for patios. It doesn't really change the way that we currently have it set up. The access to getting approval is still fairly quickly. The major concern that people who are extending patios or putting patios out there is there certain codes that cannot be altered or adjusted to assist with any patio extensions. So for the fire code stays in place. Any regulations under the fire code do apply, and there is no alteration with regards to that. But the process to expedite getting approval is fairly quick. It's a straightforward, fill out the application, do a quick design, get it in, it's reviewed as soon as it's received, and usually can be approved, in 1, 2, 3 days. Whereas some of the delays are occurring is you're getting a request on a Friday and hoping to have it open for a Saturday. So we certainly encourage the sooner they get it in, the sooner it can be reviewed and processed and back out.
Thank you.
Director Manhire?
Madam Chair, if I can just say that a good idea for the chief and staff to get together tomorrow to take a look at options around cooling, because this week is going to be in the 35 plus. So I think it would be worthwhile for us to put out a piece of communication that might give people options. And
I think that's a great idea. I noticed even today across from, I had to go to town hall to check my box, and there were a number of people sitting in that park. And I think they were there, they were socializing, but they were also there for the shade. And I recognized a number of them that used to sit in Tim Hortons, so they were in the park instead trying to stay cool. So that would be a great suggestion, I think. Any other comments before we leave this? Councillor Brennan?
Thanks. Yeah, just a couple of questions, and I think Mayor Panko is going to address the mask, so I'll save my mask question for then. But on the town hall service area, and I'm just wondering, is there any, I mean, I think there's other municipalities that do have some in-person service that is happening now. Do we have any idea when that might happen here?
Who's your question directed to, Councillor Brennan?
Well, the chief, I guess. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
So with regards to the reopening of municipal offices and certain services, at this point in time, there is no specific date for that. And the current services that are being offered will remain until we do an opening. There has been some suggested dates, but we're kind of hesitant on putting out any suggested dates just in the event that we can't meet those dates and we have to put it off for another day or week. But those that has been discussed in our control group meetings. And unfortunately, we don't have an exact date as of yet.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And just to follow up on the mail, I haven't picked up my mail since January. Anyway, the other, on the cooling end of it, the arena, is that a possibility?
That's through the chair. That's something we're certainly going to be discussing and taking a look at. And again, just with the provincial orders that are in place with regards to the number of gatherings, then you have signage, then you have to have the staff, and we're looking at a provincial guideline that's addressing at least one staff member for every 10 people. I don't expect we're going to have 200 people looking for a cooling station.
No.
But certainly we have to be prepared before we can offer that option. And again, sanitizing, masks, the distancing, whether we put the labels on the floor, the one way in, the one way out, who's going to direct staff, how long they're going to be permitted to stay there, what hours of operation. So there's quite a realm of items that have to be finalized before we could offer that. And again, I think the province, when I speak to them tomorrow morning, I'm hopeful that they're going to be able to provide some direction on that as well.
Yeah, the problem is that the heat is here and will be here through the weekend and then will probably dissipate. But in normal times, that's something we do, like with a flick of the wrist, the arena would be the place to go. So too bad we have the pandemic, right? Yeah.
Councillor Alford?
Just on the subject of cooling stations, Councillor Dwyer is right. There are some very inexpensive and easy to do, quickly to do options. A hose and a sprinkler on some of our own property is one way. And the other thing that I thought, and you will probably talk about this tomorrow, Director Manhar, is there any way to employ the wading pool over in Victoria Park on a short-term basis? I know what all the health unit rules are, but if you put enough chlorine in it, we could probably do it for a few days. And the problem before was that it wasn't getting circulated. I think with this kind of heat, circulation probably wouldn't be a problem.
Did you want to say something, Director Manhar? No.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just we will look at options, and certainly there are logistical issues with any of the things that we open up that we would have to address, and we have a very talented group. We can address those tomorrow. Certainly the wading pools would be an option, but again, there's staffing requirements. So we'll work through those logistics and see what we can resource, and we'll come back to council with options.
Thank you very much. And who's next, Director Manhar?
Director Dunlop, I believe, has a report as well.
Thank you. Director Dunlop. Hello.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick update on Beckwith Street. I just want to share with the committee the things that are going on this week. We have a servicing crew that's doing installations of water and sewer on the west side of the street. They're working from Main Street and heading in a southerly direction, approximately one property service per day. With the onset of the heat, there's going to be some overnight activities. On Tuesday night, we have crews coming in to do water connections. These are permanent and final water connections at William Street on the west leg and Russell Street on the west leg. The main water main in the street that's been constructed is serviced. It was connected at Chambers Street last week. So in effect, one of the 8 connection points are complete. After Tuesday night, we'll have 2 more. On Thursday night, that overnight crew will be coming back to do a connection to the water system that's a little more complex on Russell Street East. Again, it works around the heat issue and also allows those activities to happen when it's not to impact the local businesses and their operations. So that's the key activities on waterworks. You'll see road excavation underway right now on the block between essentially Main Street and Russell Street. We expect to have that completed tomorrow on the west side. They will be then moving into the lower block of Main Street to Chambers, where they're going to start digging for the pits for the future tree planting. Electrical will be continuing this week. Essentially, all of the trench works on the east side of Beckwith Street in front of BMO and Pizza will be completed and backfilled. So once that's completed, Black & McDonald will be working on the streetlight foundations, or sort of, should I say, traffic signal foundations at the Main Street intersection. I did want to share with the committee that we did hear quite a bit of public concern about public access in the job site early last week, and Tomlinson responded with a very significant rollout of new fencing, signage, and paved temporary surfaces that I think has dramatically improved what you see out on the street. And we're very pleased with the response that happened to that. On the financial end of things, we're reviewing the progress payments for the month of June. So I'll be providing more updates on the finances of the project at the next committee of the whole, but that's going to be reviewed on our end for payment this week. So that's all I have on Beckwith Street this week.
Thank you. Questions from anyone? No? Thank you very much. As always, your updates are great.
Thank you.
And the last report is who?
It's from myself.
Oh, go ahead.
So we have St. Francis is open, as the chief mentioned. We have a third group starting in tomorrow, which is 3 groups of 8. We're rolling that out as we get registration and as we train staff. So there's a combination of rolling those pieces together. Right now, we still have capacity, but we're also in the midst of training staff on the new protocols. So staff that were involved in the essential services daycare or childcare are trained and they're in. We're bringing staff back and training them as we can to bring them back into the service. So we will be taking a look at that. We've got our third group tomorrow, and then we have potential for one more group on top of that. We're also looking at the staffing requirements that we need in order to be able to expand that service. The good thing is that Heritage House actually has their protocols in place, and they were approved for operating a day camp program. So they will be putting out information on day camp programming within the next week or so. So people can be looking for that registration as well. We've also been in discussions, community services staff have been in discussions with gymnastics camp that is going to be operating, a sports camp that has their protocols in place and approved, and we're looking at physical facilities to operate from. And we had a meeting today with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we believe that we have a model that will allow them to operate a day camp as well. So those are 3 options that should come to fruition within the next 2 weeks, but I'll update council at the next council meeting.
That is great news.
Yes.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Director Menard?
I just want one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just Canada Day, we had 28 participants decorating their homes and making our community a prettier place to live in and helping us celebrate. All 5 winners received over 300 votes in on their specific properties, and we're very pleased to see that kind of participation in the community.
Good, thank you. I see no, Councillor Brennan, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that, Art. And I just wanted to mention in terms of the Heritage House, Sienna Colley, the program coordinator over there, did an absolutely great interview on Lake 88 on Saturday morning, and she made it sound like they're pumping there, and I'm sure people are excited to get over. And I hope the market goes. And the decorating contest, there was a couple in my neighborhood, and just fantastic. And there's one particular home, I won't mention where it is, but they have a riddle in front of their porch every morning. And when I go for my walk, I read the riddle, but they really did a great job, and everybody did. And, what a great way to celebrate. So thanks to Nick and your staff for putting that together. Yeah.
It's great. Okay, thank you. There are no correspondence items this evening, and there are no in-camera issues. So we're going to then go to priority issue A, Bellamy Farm Townhouse Site Plan Report, and that's with Senior Planner Grenke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to take too long with this report. We're We've all seen a few of these before, but this is I'm bringing forward for council's approval the next series of site plan applications for townhouses in the Bellamy Farms Phase 1 subdivision. So in this case, we're looking at 3 blocks for a total of 17 units. Most of those are 2-story townhomes, except for single-story townhomes on one of the blocks facing the on Ferreira there. So I think just in this case, I don't have a whole lot more to add. Most of the important details have been addressed through the subdivision process. So in this case, we're just looking at some of the site-specific elements, some of the grading and drainage and elements along the property lines. A few corrections have been made to the plan based on feedback from the Public Works Department. So in this case, staff will just be recommending that council adopts the bylaws or adopts a bylaw to approve 3 separate site plan agreements for the 3 blocks. Any questions from council on this?
Thank you. It looks like everyone's very anxious to get this going. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's coming forward in our council meeting this evening.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, priority issue 2 is 65 Chambers Street. And you can stay right there and speak to that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm bringing forward for council's consideration a zoning amendment application for 65 Chambers Street, which is a converted dwelling on what is described as the town's historic Frost Row. So this process started last year when 65 Chambers was sold to the current owner. There's a little square of land that was used by 65 Chambers for parking 2 cars associated with the dwelling, but owned by the abutting Healy Transportation. While the shared arrangement seemed to be okay for quite some time, both parties decided it would be time to formalize this through a consent application where the parking space lands would be formally severed from Healy's Transportation and added to 65 Chambers Street, which was being purchased by Joe Murray's company. As part of that process, it was determined that the severed lands would need to be rezoned for commercial to match the residential zoning of 65 Chambers to align with the intended ultimate use. In the meantime, the new owner, Mr. Murray, was proposing renovations to the converted dwelling. So a converted dwelling is a single family dwelling that has been or can be converted into multiple dwelling units within the house. So in this case, there's currently 5 separate apartments within the building, and the proponent sought to renovate the house to accommodate 2 separate units. One new unit, about 500 square feet, would be in the lower level where there's currently a workshop, and the larger unit on the main level would be divided into 2. The one unit would be divided into 2 new units. So no additions to the structure itself are proposed, and the only exterior alterations noted on the plans include 2 new doors where there's currently windows. A converted dwelling is permitted in the R4 zone. However, the zone prescribes density limitations of 1 dwelling unit per 200 square meters lot area. With the lot addition, the proposed density would be slightly higher at 1 unit per 178 square meters. The zoning bylaw would require a minimum of 9 parking spaces to service the 7 units, and the proponent has outlined a plan showing 8. These sorts of technical matters would often be considered by the Planning Advisory Committee through minor variance application. However, given that a zoning was already required to complete the lot addition, it was agreed by the seller's lawyer and the buyer that the zoning issues can be bundled into a single application for consideration by council. As such, an application was finalized that sought the rezoning of 65 Chambers Street and the little lot addition to a single R4 special exception zone that would harmonize the zoning across the entire amassed land holdings and accommodate the technical exceptions to allow the development to proceed as envisioned. In November 2019, the Planning Advisory Committee provisionally approved the consent, which allowed for the lot addition. One of the conditions of the consent approval was that the proponent complete the zoning process to harmonize the zoning across the amassed lands. At that meeting, the committee also supported or made a recommendation to support the zoning application as submitted. So it's important to note that the application is not an all or nothing proposal. The consent approval is structured to allow an option to approve simply the R4 zoning across the entire lands, which would allow for the completion of the severance, even if council ended up not supporting the special exception provisions. And that option is available to council and can still allow the completion of the severance. Following the public meeting and feedback received from an abutting property owner, as well as the Municipal Heritage Committee, the proponent agreed to modify the proposal from what was originally submitted in order to remove 2 parking spaces in the front yard. The proponent has agreed in this case to remove the back porch, which would allow for some additional room to accommodate the additional parking spaces at an angle in the backyard, and thereby remove the proposal for 2 parking spaces in the front. The end result, which is attached to the report, is tight but complies with zoning, other than the requested relief of 1 parking space. In this case, the Municipal Heritage Committee kindly provided comment acknowledging that while the property is listed of interest, it does not have the legal protections of a designated property. However, it abuts another listed property as well as a designated heritage property. And as such, the relocation of the parking spaces is important within the context of this built landscape. Servicing is another issue that has arisen that has involved a lot of work and consideration. While the lot is serviceable, we understand that the dwelling and its 2 neighbors are connected through a 150 millimeter sanitary pipe at the rear, which then connects to the public system on Giles Street. And a public concern was raised based on a pipe leak from a few years ago, whether the present arrangement encumbers an intensification of the use at 65 Chambers Street. So this posed technical questions and legal questions, firstly with respect to capacity and secondly with respect to a legal right to use. So Planning and Public Works staff met with the applicant in early November to discuss the servicing questions and address options to move forward. The applicant subsequently submitted a letter from an independent civil engineer confirming that the theoretical pipe capacity is suitable in terms of size and slope to support the development as envisioned, and the letter was found to be satisfactory by the Public Works Department. The legal question regarding the right to use was more complex, and we needed to obtain a legal opinion as it related to the municipal responsibility. The town solicitor advised that if we can prove that the lots were in different names and the sewer line was in place since the transfer to different owners more than 20 years prior to the conversion of land titles, then the owners would have that prescriptive easement. The owner's solicitor subsequently assembled the appropriate information regarding the ownership lineage, the conversion to land titles, and historic existence of the sewer line to demonstrate that a prescriptive easement to use the sewer line was in place. And this final piece of information was presented to the town quite recently. Our solicitor advised that so long as we are satisfied that the capacity exists, then there is no reason to refuse planning approval on the basis of servicing. And while a shared use and maintenance agreement would be helpful in addressing the civil responsibilities of each party, it's likely unenforceable as a condition under the Planning Act approval, as it would require the approval of a third party. Finally, the assessment of the application had to consider the appropriateness of allowing for an increased density as envisioned on the lot. As noted in the report, the location adjacent to Collector Road in proximity to downtown suggests that an increase in density is worth considering here, particularly given that no structural expansion is proposed. The increase in density from this application suggests is looking to go from the current 17.1 units per net hectare to about 25, which is slightly lower than that permitted for accessory residential uses in the downtown. The decrease in parking from 1.25 parking spaces to 1.14 is considered to be minor, given that the subject property is within walking distance of a large amount of commercial and employment activity in the downtown, including grocery services. So while the zoning bylaw is up for review in the near future, in this case, we have a proposal before us and staff are inclined to support the requested reduction in parking. Certainly, I expect, especially through the work of the Housing Task Force, we're going to have a broader look at parking requirements for residential uses as well. So I'd like to acknowledge and thank the proponent for agreeing to the modification on the parking. And I'd also like to thank the abutting property owner for her participation in the process. We feel that has resulted in an improved outcome that better maintains the heritage characteristics of the area. Ultimately, there do remain concerns regarding servicing, and the staff recommendations can only be made based on the technical and legal advice we've obtained relating to the servicing and our assessment of the merits of the proposal. I can certainly appreciate the challenges on this file. So, in terms of the options available to council, if certainly council can approve the zoning as as modified with the caveat the parking not be accommodated in the front. Ultimately, council can also, and that would certainly involve the considerations and the feedback that we've received, including this afternoon as well. Council can also approve just the R4 zoning across the entire piece, and that would enable completion of the severance. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that. That would be a more of a technical nature. However, if council does seek more information, then I'll look forward to council's direction on the application and provide feedback on the options available to you. Thank you.
Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Carl. That a lot going on, and you brought it together really well. And I'm really impressed how you're able to bring two issues together into one report, so we can get it talked about in one shot. I really like how the parking's been accommodated and how we're not looking at the spots in the front anymore. I have a concern with the sewer servicing, sanitary sewer, because as much as we've got a technical opinion on it, we've also got a history with the existing line plugging. So I'm wondering if it, in your opinion, if there'd be any issues with putting a holding provision on on making these changes tonight that would involve the construction of a direct servicing connection to an existing sanitary sewer on one of the 4 streets that surround this property. Yeah, Kurt?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that, thank you, Councillor. That option is available to, that option is certainly available to Council, and I'll look for any additional comment from Director Dunlop regarding the how that can be achieved. I understand Chambers Street, which would be the logical partner, is higher in elevation from the sewer pipe there, so it may necessitate an increased, it's some either pumping work or some sort of additional infrastructure to allow that connection. But I also haven't approached that option with the proponent to see if that would be of interest to him. But certainly that is an option if council would like to see the lot directly serviced from Chambers Street, and I'll look for any feedback from Director Dunlop on the technical components there.
Thanks, Carl. And if I could just ask a follow-up question to that. And I think the other thing too is if they had an easement to Center Street downhill, maybe that could be a more cost-effective option if there's an easement through the Healy's property to get to the sanitary sewer there. There is one. If we were building a new house in this lot, would we allow it to tap into an existing private sanitary sewer, or would they have to do a private connection?
Certainly, my preference, and I can let Director Dunlop respond as well. My preference would be to make use of the existing connection if that's reasonable. And it's the serviceability is something that we would be looking at when we're creating the lot in the first place. We'd be looking at the topography there.
Can we have, did you want Director Dunlop to speak to that? Is that what you were hoping, Councillor McGuire?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here.
I think, thanks.
I don't have him on my screen, but I know he was here. Director Dunlop, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the property essentially fronts onto sewer in 2 different locations, as mentioned. So it fronts on Chambers Street, but topographically it would have to pump. They would have to convert their wastewater to a pump system to get the sewage up to Chambers Street. So there would be an expense to that. The applicant has demonstrated that they have a technical capacity to discharge to Center Street. They obtained that under independent advice of a professional engineer. So, significant steps have been taken in that regard. And as we understand it, there is a prescriptive right through the shared service that is in place across the properties, and it has been in that arrangement for some time. So I don't believe that Public Works has any justification to direct them to change that. And it would certainly result in significant additional expense to the proponent.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dwyer, you had your hand up. Did you want to speak to this?
I did. Troy, the servicing brief that was provided was conducted by a third-party engineer. In your review of the document, did you see any need to have it peer reviewed?
No, I did not. It's a very basic analysis, slope, grade, capacity of a pipe. They did the technical calculations. It was thorough, adequate in my view.
Okay. In that case, I have no reason to doubt the professional opinion of an engineer on such a matter. I also, related to this, I wanted to seek clarity because we did have an email that came through at 4:30 today that spoke about the number of units exceeding those which were identified in the report. So Carl, can you just provide some clarification on the history of the number of units in this building? The correspondence that we received was from an adjacent property owner that alluded to up to 11 units being in the property. That now, what we're being asked to approve reduces that. Are they looking at modifying the interior of the structure to reduce those units? If so, is that going to change the net capacity on water dwelling or water drawing fixtures within the units, which is going to change the output? Like what's the historic context around capacity within this structure and what's being proposed?
Carl, answer that. Can you answer that question?
Yes, so I'm looking at the email that we all recently received, and I understand that the with respect to 11 units, that's at 69 Chambers Street, right next door. So there were 9 units, and then that got expanded to 11. I'm not sure how that happened, whether there were any planning approvals that were required or undertaken. That's not something that's crossed my desk. So in this case, all that I'm aware of is we have 5 units in this building, and they're proposing to subdivide one of those units to create 2 additional ones, and then create 1 more unit, sort of a bachelor apartment out of a workshop space on the lower level. So increasing the total amount of units from 5 to 7 on this property, and I believe that would result in an increase of a couple of bedrooms through the entire structure based on this intensification.
Okay, so my thoughts on this would not be in favor of an additional service connection. If the capacity exists on the line and a certified engineer has verified that, then I have no reason to doubt that. If Troy feels that the analysis was thorough and there was no need for a peer review or any amount of doubt in the methodology, then again, I don't see any reason to deny this. The request that comes in seems to be in conformity with the OP and the zoning bylaw, and thus I'm supportive of this. And I mean, easement like this, as unfortunate as it is, it's registered on title for a reason. The adjacent property owners would have been aware of it when they bought their property.
Thank you for that. Now I have 2 councillors that are waiting in line. Councillor Alford.
Just in terms of historical, and I'm not sure, Lorraine would probably be the only other one at this table, well, Peter possibly remember, that house was home to a single family of, I believe, 14 or 15 children at one point when we were growing up. Was that not where I don't want to say the family's names, but
it's
one over?
It's the other house that is having trouble with it that had that family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they had a large family as well.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor McGuire, you have been waiting patiently. Did you have something to comment?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I'm not sure whether it's the best for Director Dunlop or Mr. Greinke, but do we know if the engineering review on the pipe was accounting for the 2 extra units at the other house upstream? Because I'm thinking now we're adding four units onto this, and if it's just if they were accounting for 17 units instead of 19 units, maybe that would throw the calculations off by a little bit. And the follow-up question to that is there any issues? Obviously, getting it up to Chambers Street's an issue. Would there be an issue with getting an easement and putting a private connection onto the sanitary sewer underneath Center Street?
Go ahead.
So I'll respond to the first question here. I have the servicing brief in front of me, and it states that the study is conducted to confirm the available capacity for the additional proposed units in the building. In terms of the connection across Center Street, certainly that would require the approval of a third party, and that would be a challenge to implement. It would be a challenge to condition that. I'll let Director Dunlop speak to the provision of easements of that nature. I understand that they're generally they're not a favorite approach, but I'll let Director Dunlop speak to that if he could.
Through the chair, when you get into older municipalities, these arrangements, they're not uncommon. Based on the duration of how long those pipes have been placed determines whether or not there is what they term a prescriptive easement. So in essence, the party to whom the sewer crosses doesn't have the right, as an example, to dig it up and block it and remove it. There's a prescriptive right that's been there for a certain duration of time. So in essence, there is no registered easement on title. We should clarify that. But certainly the existence of the sewer would or should be evident through a typical property inspection upon sale. So it should have been identified at that time. I think the inherent challenge with these properties is, as Carl had mentioned earlier, is the lack of a shared maintenance agreement around it. So if you've got three properties sharing a service through a prescriptive right, and there isn't a joint servicing arrangement, therein lies the problem. And I think that has been the problem in the past. So from a public works standpoint, we view the property at 65 Chambers as serviceable. It has 2 outlets. They have done the investigations that we feel are adequate to demonstrate it can be serviced. So that's, unfortunately, that's where we stand.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask a follow-up question to Director Dunlop. Troy, do you see any mechanism for the municipality to assist these property owners in developing such a shared maintenance agreement so that this concern does not come up in the future? I mean, at this point, because it's historic, it's already been there. There's no necessary approval from the municipality that's going to require that. Is there anything we can do to try and improve this situation aside from requiring separate connections to a different main?
Through the chair, in response to that, any servicing arrangement, it will have to be a legal servicing arrangement. So to that end, I think they would require the services of a solicitor to assemble that agreement. And there may be some discussion around how those costs would be applied or prorated, whether it's by square footage, by population, by length of pipe. It's hard to indicate how that would be viewed as being most equitable and most fair. So it could be a drawn out process that may or may not have a favorable conclusion at the end.
But to be clear, there is limited, if any, role for the municipality to play in that.
Through the chair, staff would not normally interject in mediating shared servicing arrangements between 2 private property owners. Good.
Okay.
We normally would not.
Mayor Panko.
Troy, is the engineering report purely a mathematical exercise in calculating the number of tenants, residential units in each of the 2 buildings and the physical size of the pipe and the slope, or did it involve any physical inspection of the sanitary pipe to see if it is still meeting capacity needs example, is there partial restrictions? Has there been a buildup in the pipe that could possibly cause issues in the future? And then finally, if we give our A-OK to this and we approve this, are we in any way suggesting that are we potentially in a tight legal position if we endorse this and there's an issue in the future, it comes back to haunt us?
Through the chair, we would rarely get involved in the condition assessments of a private infrastructure. I mean, we could look at that through site plan control, but in the end, the town would not be the final party ruling on the adequacy of those. We would be looking for the proponent to have that advice provided over independent engineering advice, and they have. So their engineer has guided the discussion as opposed to the town's advice.
Councillor
We
Alford.
accept recommendations as opposed to approving reports. So just to be clear, we're accepting the recommendations of a professional engineer.
Right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Alford.
Yes, I'm going to support this. I think staff's done due diligence over this file, so I'm going to support it. I do have one question, though. Councillor Dwyer referenced an email that came in at 4:30 today. I see no evidence on my email of receiving it, so perhaps it just went to her. I'm not sure. I'll be supporting it.
Yeah, I think. Can I just have a show of hands of who is going to move forward to support this?
I have a comment, Lorraine.
Did you want to comment? Go ahead. I saw your
please.
hand up.
Yeah. So this came through the Planning Advisory Committee, as we know.
Yes.
The main concern at that time were the parking spaces in front.
Yes.
And
Yes.
as often happens, when we have these applications, to Carl's credit and the committee's credit, we're able to address issues with neighbors. I did get the email at 4:30 today, and just reviewed it just before the meeting. I reviewed the report, and in my view, that those concerns were addressed in the report. A professional engineer is just that, a professional, and I used to work for one, so that's why they have a little pinky ring, and they they think they're akin to doctors and they're problem solvers, but they are respected professionals, and so I'm not an engineer in any way, shape, or form. And as we know, when we're making decisions, we need the advice from people that know more than us, which is oftentimes most people. But in this case, I felt that the Planning Advisory Committee did a good job in listening and taking back the concerns that were put to us before we bet on this. And the main concern was the parking. And we all know that apartments are at a premium, and anything we can do to have some intensification towards the downtown core and where our services are is good. And so I'll certainly support this as well. And I think that staff did their due diligence and in investigating all the concerns. So I'm going to support it too.
Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you.
I think we can move on to priority issue C, new hangar lease municipal airport report with Director Dunlop. Director Dunlop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of the report before Council tonight is to obtain approval to execute a new private hangar lease agreement for the Bravo West 2 site location at the Smiths Falls Montague Airport. On June the 2nd of this year, we received a signed lease agreement through the Smiths Falls Flying Club for the new aircraft hangar site, as indicated. The gentleman that submitted that was Maurizio Penna, as referenced in the report. The terms of the lease agreement between Mr. Penna and the municipalities of both Smiths Falls and Montague Township would include the following. It includes an acknowledgement that the lease is actually managed through the Smiths Falls Flying Club as the airport manager. The term of the lease is 21 years in duration. There's an acknowledgement of the rules and regulations of the Smiths Falls Flying Club as it pertains to the airport. Terms relating to the access of the leased premises, when it can be accessed or not. Provisions relating to rent, property taxes, and maintaining property insurance. And also notices, rights, and remedies concerning disputes on the agreement. On June 17th, the Smiths Falls Flying Club did present this lease to the Airport Commission, and the Commission passed a motion to approve the lease. The lease, therefore, has to go before Town of Smiths Falls Council and Montague Council for final approval. My understanding from the CAO of Montague Township is that they will be reviewing this early in August. They do not meet in the month of July. Based on the outcomes of the Airport Commission recommendation, we are asking or recommending to to council that we pass a bylaw to execute the hangar lease agreement for site BW2 with the party named in the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Questions or comments? Councillor Alford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sit on the Airport Commission as well, and I was there on June 17th. And I do not, it's not that I don't support having new hangars. It's that this agreement between our municipality and the Smiths Falls Flying Club is close to 30 years old. These agreements are for 21 years. And well, as Director Dunlop said, the new builds would come through council, but the renewals are delegated authority, and those are rolling over. I'm not sure. We're asking for more information on how often that happens and how many 21-year leases are out there. I'm uncomfortable signing anything for 21 years, particularly under the terms of an agreement that is 30 years old. So I really feel that we should defer this hangar lease. Unfortunately for Mr. Penna, I understand he did send that to the Smiths Falls Flying Club in January, but this municipality only received it June 3rd, and the commission voted on it June 17th to let it go ahead. Now it's at council, and I feel my feelings are unchanged from my opinions at the Airport Commission, and I do think that this is an agreement that is long overdue being revisited. And I am at this point in time, the thing I object to most is that we're signing 21-year agreements when this particular agreement between the municipalities and the Airport Commission is close to 30 years old. So those are my comments, and I won't be supporting going forward with the signing of this lease.
Councillor Brennan?
Thank you. Well, I agree. The agreement that we have with the Smiths Falls Flying Club is dated 1992. The last meeting of the Airport Commission in June, we asked, the commission asked the Flying Club, who have two representatives on the commission, for some information, because everyone agrees the agreement should be reviewed, not only with leases, with the revenues that are coming into the airport and other things, but in this case, I and the other commissioners felt that given the fact that this has been the practice since 1992, this application was put in January. It did not come to the commission till June, and I think part of the problem there was the COVID problem that we had, so there was a delay. So I can assure you that the commission is committed to looking at the agreement. But in fairness to this gentleman, I'm not ready to rewrite the agreement on the fly, and I think he put his application in good faith, and I'm going to support it as I did that day. And I want to acknowledge that the Flying Club. I mean, there's things certainly to look at in the agreement, but we have to remember that the Flying Club, we own the airport. The Flying Club, through their volunteer hours, put thousands and thousands of hours into maintaining that airport, and with our support. And I would add that our support is modest financially, and so it is self-serving for them because they do have their planes out there. But as we go forward, and this town grows, and you can ask Tweed and other people that use that airport. We have a responsibility not only to the taxpayers, but to make sure that we're getting value for what we're. And is there a way to do it better? I think there is, but in this particular case, in all fairness, I'm not prepared to change on the fly when this came in January, but yeah, I'm committed to looking at this again, but in this particular case, I'm going to support it.
Mayor Panko and then Councillor Alford.
Yeah, as the third member of this council that serves on the airport commission, I agree with the comments of my colleagues from the standpoint that this agreement is badly outdated and need a review, and there's also levels of accountability that we need to see from the Flying Club coming to councils and to the airport commission. But at this stage, I'm not prepared to hold up this one application. However, I think we're sending a message loudly and clearly that there will likely be no further, or possibly no further approvals based on councils, of course, until we've got this agreement reviewed and any changes addressed that we want to see addressed. But I will support the agreement today.
Councillor Alford.
Yeah, and there's some information that I don't have, but we are signing renewals, 21-year renewals. Well, this is happening too. So this is 21 years at a very modest sum. I agree with what Councillor Brennan and Councillor or Mayor Panko have said, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to start sometime. And I'm sure past councils probably went, yeah, we should look at this. And it hasn't been done. So not only are there renewals that have been signed in the past year, I'm assuming, or in the past 2 years, or in the past 5 years, that also are extending those renewals for another 21 years. And I do think it's unfortunate that Mr. Penna is caught in the middle of this, but I don't feel that it's in the best interest of the municipality to proceed until we have a better, more equitable or refreshed agreement with the Smiths Falls Flying Club. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure, maybe one of the airport commissioner representatives could let me know when will the review commence, and what's the expected timeline? When could we see a new and improved and updated modernized agreement? Do we have a sense of that?
Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, we had a meeting on June 17th. And so we requested the Flying Club to provide information to us in terms of their financials and the hangar lease agreements. And they said that, we'll have that in due course. I don't think it's going to be a year from now. I think there's a lot of appetite to get at it, and they seem to be open to provide the information in a timely manner. So I don't have a date, but I expect it will be soon. And of course, it will come to this group for discussion. And once we have that information.
Councillor McKenna?
So if it could be done, let's, not to rush something, let's get it right. If it takes 6 months, and if we know that, that it's imminent. I'd be prepared to ask Mr. DePena to hold off and wait until, because we're locked in, as has been mentioned, for 21 years. Are we getting, you know, if we're about to change something, to lock in just before that for 21 years, I'm not sure that's prudent.
Yeah, through the chair, if I could add, just remember that Mr. Penna, he started in January. So, and there was, the request was made to the Flying Club in June for the information. So,
Okay, Director Dunlop wants to speak. Go ahead.
Through the chair, just looking at the lease agreements and the protection for the $100 a year charge is really the first year. Beyond that, there is latitude in the agreement for increases in that, and also independent or new surcharges to be applied to that. So there is latitude in the agreement for change. I do want to identify that. I do, however, have to outline that change would firstly have to be approved by the Smiths Falls Flying Club as a whole, and then secondly, jointly agreed by the Airport Commission and the municipalities thereafter. So the setting of the fees under the current agreement, structured from the 1992 agreement, it's all done collaboratively with the municipalities and the airport manager being the Flying Club.
Councilor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I guess my question is open to anybody that's involved with this. Is it outside of the $100 a year, are there any other financial implications to the Flying Club if this lease agreement was to be put on hold until the next agreement with the airport comes into place?
Director Dunlop, do you know the answer to that?
There's not a straight answer to that. Certainly, let's call it as it is. I mean, we have an application from an individual that is prepared to make a capital investment in a private hangar. So, in the larger scope of the operations of the airport, I don't think the operating revenue from that $100 really means much. I should point out that when the hangars are built, they do pay taxes based on their MPAC assessments. Those do, of course, go directly to Montague as the host municipality. So I think you would have to look at this application from the perspective of the private investor as opposed to the club. That would be my view at the staff level.
Councilor Brennan.
This may be more than my third time. I think that, what we're doing here is we have an agreement that was written in 1992. And, everyone on the commission from your council agrees that it's outdated. And on the other hand, we have a group of people that have a flying club that actually have taken very good care of the airport and in maintenance and making sure that it's serviceable. And actually, we have corporate clients that come in and land and use our airport. So there's a little balance to do here, and for me, all I want to do is what's fair to everybody. And obviously, there's things that need to be looked at that are in the agreement, and I want to do it in a collaborative fashion with the Flying Club. And I know that they're fair people too, so we need to work with them. But in this particular case, I think it would be counterproductive to put a hold on this particular lease because, i.e., it started in January, and this is the way it's written up in the agreement that stands now. So, I think we need to work with them. And this particular case, I think it's as Director Dunlop just said, if things change, then that's going to change. So, but we have to work on it.
Director Dunlop.
I just want to quickly mention through the chair, I mean, based on what I'm hearing this evening, there may perhaps be latitude to amend the resolution from tonight to perhaps capture a freeze on subsequent lease opportunities pending the review of the agreement. That might be our clear indication as a council that we want that step to happen before anything also advances or stops any further ones from coming in the queue. So I'm just going to suggest that just for discussion purposes.
That seems to answer what I'm hearing people say. Most people feel this needs to be redone, and also that this gentleman's been in the queue waiting for this. So to me, that makes sense. Do we want to do a show of hands? Who agrees with Director Dunlop? Put your hands up. Just two of us.
I have another comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
This will be my third. I could, the suggestion that Dr. Dunlop is a good one, and I can probably live with it. Just want to confirm that from the municipality's perspective, we are seeing it tonight, and that the Airport Commission saw it June 17th. It was in it, to Mr. Penna, it feels like he's been waiting a long time. From the municipality's perspective and the Airports Commission, we literally have just got this in June. So I think saying that we're not that we're or intimating in any way that we're not willing to work with the airport on most of this stuff would be a disservice to both the Airport Commission, and the two municipalities. And I agree that they do take very good care of our airport. They also do not contribute capitally to it. So to both the municipalities in a 25-75 share do that. Smith Falls carrying most of that water. And that should be part and will be part of the discussions going forward. Now, in terms of some way to wrap this up, I think I could live with a freeze on this going forward as part of the resolution, that no other renewals or new builds get signed until such time as this agreement is redone, renegotiated, refreshed, whatever we want to. We don't even have the information yet, and that's a question for Mr. Dunlop. Have we received all the information requested by the Airport Commission from the Smith Falls Flying Club?
Go ahead, Director Dunlop.
Through the chair, we of course gave a list of, I think, 5 separate items at the Airport Commission that they were to report on: insurance fees, financials, a list of the hangar leased owners, etc. Some of that information has been received by our department, but based on the availability of council at Montague and some staff locally, we will not be having a follow-up meeting to discuss the agreement and that information until August, hopefully early August. But we expect that we should have that information dispensed to the, I would say, to the Airport Commission members by the middle of this month for sure. It has come in. We're just looking to make sure that the package is complete.
Okay, thank you. Then I can support it if the resolution is changed to say there's a freeze after we sign this one for Mr. Penna.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. How do others feel? Councillor McKenna, what were you going to say?
Just that by me doing my job as a councillor and asking questions about holding a lease while this is being reviewed in no way sends any message around any thoughts about the airport, the way it's being operated. It's a terrific airport. So I'm not sure where that was coming from. We're doing our job here by looking at legal agreements, doing our due diligence, asking good questions. That in no way implies any ill will or animosity or questioning on how things are operating. It's time to modernize this. I'm anxious. I would like to know what the process is for the review. I hope it looks at, as part of the review, I hope we look at other airports that are municipally run to see what the terms and conditions are, much like we do with our service reviews, to make sure we're getting good value, et cetera, and modernize it. So I think that's our job, and I'm glad we're having this discussion, and I think we've reached a consensus that there will be this review. It will be thorough, and we won't be renewing other leases after tonight until we get that dealt with.
So does everyone agree that we will move forward wanting this to be a review? And this will be a freeze. We won't give this to him. Is that what I'm hearing people say? Yes, just Mayor Panko.
Well, I propose we amend the recommendation from staff and the bylaw and simply add a statement at the end of it that council will not consider any further airport hangar leases until it's had a satisfied review, or an updated agreement with the Flying Club.
Okay, that sounds good. Do I have nodding heads? Yes. Okay, okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to priority issue D. Again, it's with Director Dunlop, Federation of Canadian Municipalities Asset Management Funding 2020 report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of the report before committee tonight is to seek support for a grant application for road and sidewalk condition assessments under the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program. In particular, we're looking at a service offering through local area services for StreetScan Canada ULC. Similar to the approach we went through with the LED conversion program, LAS selected a preferred service provider for street lighting in the province of Ontario. That led to the outcomes we have with Realterm. They've also done similar for road assessment needs services, and StreetScan Canada ULC is the approved service provider. I would like to make a correction in the council report. I grabbed perhaps an older email from FCM, but the Municipal Asset Management Program is in fact an 8-year program with $110 million in funding. It is funded, of course, by Infrastructure Canada. The program, or the intent of the program, is to offer support to municipalities to start building capacity in their asset management programs and systems so they can be more self-sustaining and self-sufficient going forward. Individual projects under this program are all capped at $50,000, of which that would be the 80% funding cap provided by Infrastructure Ontario. Any individual projects that are applied for must be completed in a 1 year or a 12-month time frame. So in essence, every year there's a new rollout of another term of this grant program federally. I should mention that this grant program that's being sponsored federally will be wrapping up in October of 2022. So there's a few more years and rounds ahead of us. So looking at the package before you, we're looking to access road and sidewalk assessment programs through StreetScan, and that would involve condition ratings on 136 lane kilometers. So in essence, they would be looking at half the road, essentially half the street in each direction. So there'd be 136 lane kilometers of paved surface that would be assessed in our municipality. There's also data collection for 65 kilometers of sidewalks in Smiths Falls as well. So they would be doing all the field data collection and data analysis. A key part of this will be data visualization. They will give us a file that will be downloadable and can be imported into our GIS system. So moving towards providing the public and council with a visual representation of our road assets is going to be helpful for conversations around investing in where the gaps are. The new assessment program will be based on the Universal Pavement Condition Index report, and through this analysis we will get further information on maintenance and budget options and scenarios that will help inform us when we start to establish service levels as required under the new provincial asset management regulation. So in terms of the details of the program, you'll see attachment 1 to the report that gives you all the very details of how the streets and sidewalks are analyzed. So there's information to report on that. In the financial section, the net project that we're speaking of is $33,994 net of HST. When you remove the 20% funding, our obligation would be $6,798. In light of our situation financially, we know that we can fund this program through our operating without adding new pressures to our budget in 2020. I should add that the town did already receive $50,000 under this program, of course, through an application that was led by Treasurer Koziel. You'll recall in 2019, we did receive an application for our citywide asset management software. So we did have a success in a prior round. But with that said, we're still looking to advance with options on our, again, expanding our asset management capabilities going forward. So that's all I have on that.
Councillor McGuire, do you have questions, comments?
Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Dunlop. It's great how we're able to take advantage of this year after year. Good work on getting this together. So I'm wondering, this does the surface of the streets. How do we incorporate the condition of our stormwater assets under the streets? Come up with the holistic picture of what's of where that street is in its life cycle.
Through the chair. So in essence, we have different condition assessment programs for the different infrastructure streams, be it the water network, the sewer networks, or the drainage networks. As an example, each and every year coming out of our service reviews for wastewater, we're doing camera inspections on 6 kilometers of our pipe sewage systems. So we're starting to gather information and analytics on all of those linear assets. When it comes to the road network, when we move from our current model, which is somewhat subjective, I mean, we'd have a staff member go out and rate the roads on a ratings of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. When you have a long list of infrastructure deficits like we do, refereeing some of those projects does become challenging in a subjective environment. While I do have all the confidence in the world of staff to do that, it will be very beneficial for the town to get a condition assessment baseline that is 100% computer generated. It's going to make those tough decisions a little easier to make in terms of a fact. But back to Councillor McGuire's comments. It's staff's job to take the top 10 or the top 15 road projects and overlay that with other needs in water and sewer and start to package projects so that when we do dig up a street and we do that very obviously intrusive infrastructure work, that we're getting the best value for the taxpayer in that renovation work. When you look at Beckwith Street as an example, we had water mains that were too small. They were very old. They didn't meet fire flow capacities. Our sewers were in bad structural condition. We had no storm sewers, so we were introducing new drainage systems to separate the storm and the sanitary. And of course, as we all know, the road systems on Beckwith were very bad. So it's taking the analytics from all those different areas and overlaying them. But the roadworks is a key area that I think we need more updated information on to make those tough decisions in the years ahead.
Good, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Mayor Panko?
Just haven't read the full report. It's a fascinating program. They got a great example where we can leverage $6,800 of our money to get a complete assessment of our roads and sidewalks and have it available to staff and to council and an ongoing basis that will enable us to make the best decisions as we move forward. Just one question, Troy. Should this be repeated in 3 to 5 or 7 years? So how often would we look to go back and update the information?
Through the chair, most municipalities are doing updated surveys on their road assets about a 3-year cycle. So in 3 years' time, we would be looking at an expense of generally half of what you're seeing in this report. So as an example, when you break down the cost of the sidewalks and the roads, even though the numbers are quite drastically different, the costs for those data sets are about the same. They're about half of the 33,000 each. So presumably in 3 years' time, we could be seeing an expense of perhaps $15,000. But in any event, this helps get us to mature our program from where it is today. It also helps us develop the tools and analytics to have that very difficult discussion around what our service levels will be. And I think as everyone in council knows, every bar that we set when it comes to the road system, be it locals, collectors, or arterials, comes with a cost. And that's what this software package is going to tell us what that cost would be, and help us understand what level of risk we're going to accept in our operations in catching up.
Well, great, Troy. Thank
Councillor
you.
Dwyer?
Thanks. I just wanted to say kudos to you, Troy, for finding this and getting us on board with this. To me, knowledge is power, and the more knowledge that we have about our infrastructure network, and the more we can lean into our asset management, the more sustainable and smarter we can be with the limited resources we have. So, I mean, good on you. Keep going. Find us more. Find us more. You're going to get my unlimited support for stuff like this. So thanks for pulling it together, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results as they come out.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Alfred, were you trying to add a comment?
Just that one of the things I find attractive about this is the objectivity that it's going to lend to what is bad and what is not bad, which I know all of us hear from our constituents, and this will help us objectively prioritize what needs to be done. So I appreciate it, Troy.
Yeah, no, it's a great addition to what you've been doing. Thanks very much for this. And that will come forward. No, it's not tonight. Okay. Priority issue E is with Mayor Panko, facial masks.
You muted.
Thanks, Nikki, for shaking your head. You couldn't hear me. I had this item last week in anticipation of the announcement today from Medical Officer of Health and her these compatriots across Eastern Ontario, understanding that a mandatory mask policy was likely coming into place. So I wanted to, I guess, make it as a placeholder in the agenda for any discussion by council. We've I think long advocated locally for a mandatory mask policy. I think we understand collectively that when we wear a mask, we have the opportunity to protect other people, and if other people wear a mask, they have an opportunity to help us and others. And it seems like a very common sense approach to try and help reduce the risk of the spread of the coronavirus in our community. And I think we all have to understand that despite the reality that we've been very fortunate thus far, and that there have been no confirmed cases of our residents or residents within this geographic region in a number of weeks, we only have to look elsewhere to recognize that we're all on very fragile ground, and we're all at risk of potential infection. And the measures we put in place have done a great job in reducing the spread, flattening the curve, so to speak, thus far. And we don't want this to creep back into our community. And one of the best measures we can make, of course, is to wear a face covering when we are in areas where we cannot physically distance, unless, of course, we have a health reason why we shouldn't be doing so. So there wasn't any particular action we needed to take today. The steps taken by Dr. Paula Stewart, our Medical Officer of Health, along with the Medical Officers of Health in Eastern Ontario region, Renfrew and Ottawa, and of course, Kingston's announcement about a week ago, enable this to come into place under provincial directives. But I do have a proposed resolution. I think it's probably important that we help our community understand we support this, and also that it's a very common sense approach. So I'll just wrote a resolution that was drafted this afternoon by staff that the Council of the Corporation and Tennis Smiths Falls supports the medical officer of health from Leeds, Grenville, and Lanark District Health Unit on the regional approach to the use of face covering, masks in enclosed public places within their jurisdiction, and that evidence shows that wearing a mask or face covering such as a bandana, scarf, or cloth that covers the mouth and nose can help contain the spread of COVID-19 when used in combination with staying home, when ill, frequent hand washing, and practicing physical distancing. And therefore be resolved, the council and the staff of the town of Smiths Falls will work with our health unit to promote and educate businesses and the public on this important approach. We know that this will be a bit of a challenge. We know that making it mandatory without having a policing element may cause some challenges, and it's going to be a difficult thing to enforce. But we ask our citizens and the citizens visiting businesses in our community from elsewhere respect the rules and simply do their part to try and help protect other people. And at that, I'll turn it over to any questions.
Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll certainly support the resolution, Mayor Panko, and thanks for bringing it forward. It was discussed by Public Health most recently. And of course, in support of the resolution, we know there's more to the details than that. And so people, as the chief mentioned earlier, there are people that aren't able to wear a mask, and some accommodations, of course, will be made. So I hope we don't politicize this like some of our friends in the South, and that this is good public health practice. And I think it's timely. So I'm certainly in support of it.
Councillor Brennan.
I'm 100% supportive of it. And to follow up on Councillor McKenna, I had 2 calls today from people that one had COPD and the other had asthma, and they're very concerned. Is this going to apply to me? Got the health unit website up and said, no, it doesn't apply. It won't apply to you. The concern is I can't wear a mask in the grocery store or, in closed places. I can't breathe. And their worry is they're going to be ridiculed. So the big piece of this, in my view, is the education piece and the communications. That if you see someone, the masks are not being worn enough. I think we can all agree that. But for those people that can't, I'm a little concerned of their, of their psyche of even going out anywhere anymore, because they're worried about what people will say if they don't have one on. So hopefully, and I'm sure the health unit is aware of that, and the education piece attached to this announcement, which is a significant announcement that just came down this afternoon, is going to be profound about protecting those people as well.
Councillor Alford.
Yeah, I fully support this next step. We need to be cognizant that a lot of the onus is going to fall on our business owners, who are going to be probably providing more enforcement than even our police force can. And they need probably more detail, greater detail about how they handle this and what the exceptions might be. And very often through this process, through no fault of it, it's just the evolution of something like this. The announcement is made and you have very little time to react or get things in place in businesses. And so people are looking to both the police, business owners are looking towards the police and the public health unit to say, well, what can I do? Or how should I handle this? Or at what point, if they refuse, out and out refuse, and they don't have a medical reason, it's those things that are concerning an already battered business community. So we really need to get them as much information as quickly as possible. And again, like we've all said 100 times, when you're dealing with our business community, our business owners who have struggled for so long now, people need to remember to be kind.
Yes, Mayor Panko?
Yeah, great point. And obviously, we want to help minimize any possible negative interaction or conflict that could arise out of this. And our DBA has done an incredible job of distributing PPE to the DBA membership and getting some signage out, as Councillor Alford said, be kind, and maybe there's some steps that we can assist with, and perhaps that's even getting stickers or buttons made up that may say, "Thank you for wearing a mask. I'm sorry I can't," or something to that effect. That just, if people going into a store and they can't wear one for a medical reason, maybe the person holding the entrance of the store can simply give a little sticker they can put on and make sure that no one's going to hassle them when they're in there, and it creates maybe a little bit of awareness. But I think there's steps that can be taken, and then we'll look to our business community, maybe our DBA and our chamber, to take some lead on this.
Okay, Councillor Alford.
I agree with what Mayor Panko said, but I also, it's up to all of us as individuals not to look away if someone is abusing our store owners, the staff in those stores. We're all in this together, and you can't silently just allow some of our essential workers have been the grocery stores and all these retailers, and they've taken an awful lot of abuse at times. And I think they're pretty much fed up with that. And so should we all be.
Thank you for that. Okay, our last priority issue this afternoon is F, Resolution of Support, the National Action Plan on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, and that's with Councillor McKenna. Thank you for bringing this forward, Councillor McKenna.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and my colleagues for your indulgence. If I may, I'll just take 2 minutes and give you a little context, and then I'll wrap up with why municipalities and what role municipalities may or may not have in this important conversation. And I thank our colleagues in Kirkland Lake for really starting the conversation, at least in Ontario. They may be the first. And so just a really quick background, and I'll just read quickly. Of course, the National Enquirer's final report revealed that persistent and deliberate human and Indigenous rights violations and abuses are the root causes behind Canada's staggering rates of violence against Indigenous women. The 2-volume report that came out of this calls for legal, social changes to resolve the crisis that has devastated Indigenous communities across the country. The final report is comprised of truths of more than 2,300 family members, survivors of violence, experts, and knowledge keepers. And they shared 2 years of cross-country public hearings and evidence gathering. A year ago, it delivered 231 calls for justice directed at governments, institutions, social service providers, industries, and again, all Canadians. As documented in the final report, testimony from family members and survivors of violence spoke about the surrounding context marked by multi-generational and intergenerational trauma and marginalization in the form of poverty, insecure housing, homelessness, and barriers to education. Experts and knowledge keepers spoke to specific colonial and patriarchal policies that displaced women from their traditional roles in communities and governance and diminished their status in society, leaving them vulnerable to violence. So it's structural, it's patriarchal. It wasn't an accident that hundreds and thousands of Indigenous women were either murdered or missing. It was an organized, and we've ignored it for too long. The inquiry happened, it was terrific. The report went to the federal government 1 year ago this month. We understand that they needed to take a pause because of COVID. And the resolution that Kirkland Lake brought forward, which I hope we will support later this evening, just calls on encouraging the federal government and the minister responsible for identifying, let's go, these recommendations are important, it's time to get moving. The role for municipalities in Canada, particularly even in Smiths Falls, there's 2 or 3 I've read the recommendations. There's several on housing, and we've got a housing task force. And so homelessness and housing are critical pieces, which municipalities have a say in. And policing is another area where my colleagues on the Police Services Board and police organizations across the country can look at their practices and their ongoing learning and education to make sure that the mistakes of the past don't continue to happen. So there are others. And then as citizens, we have a role in ensuring, I guess, as leaders in our community, as elected officials, in promoting the work of the commission and the recommendations. So later this evening, I'll be happy to bring that forward if my colleagues agree in supporting our friends in Kirkland Lake. Thank you.
I'll start. You know, a few years ago, we started having the powwow on Duck Island, and it really, the first year that it was here, I had so many people come to me and talk to me about the stories, the dresses that were hung, and the stories that went with it. And I think it brought to the reality of how awful, you know, it's been to lose loved ones so needlessly. And so I thank you for bringing this forward. I'm happy tonight to support it. Are there any other comments before we leave this? Okay. That being said, I think I need a motion for adjournment. Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor McGuire, all in favor? What do we need? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? I'm seeing 5 minutes. Okay, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, July 6th. We have everybody in attendance this evening. I've got two announcements. I'd like to amend the agenda to add item 8.3, which is a resolution of support for the mandatory face coverings by the Leeds Granville Lanark District Health Unit. And also want to provide some recognition to Ellie Halliday, who we received an email last week from the Rural Ontario Institute. I'm just going to read parts of that email and give people some understanding of what Ellie is going to be up to. So the Rural Ontario Institute has good news to share. One of the participants who has stepped forward with the Rural Changemakers program of the Rural Ontario Institute is from our municipality. Please announce that Ellie Halliday has been selected for the Community Development Leadership Building Journey. And Rural Changemakers is a pilot program that will prepare young adults to help mobilize action for their community. Only 18 motivated young adults from across rural Ontario have been selected to join the experience. These leaders will participate in a series of developmental training webinars on community development, connect with each other online, and hopefully come together for a face-to-face customized experiential event later in the year. This will support them to take action on a challenge opportunity they have helped their community to select. Additional personalized coaching will take place, and these rural change makers, Ellie, will be prepared to organize at least 2 events. One, a discovery session with local stakeholders and community members, focusing on an assets-based approach and linking them with allies in their mobilization efforts. And a community action lab or event oriented at producing an action plan towards a short-term concrete project that will be the focus of their initial steps affecting the change they want to see in their community. The aim of the program is to build rural youth leadership capacity, catalyze impactful rural development outcomes for communities and regions, and broaden public engagement and rural development initiatives. So thanks to Ellie's commitment, I think it's going to create some positive change in her community. We'll have to wait and see what that will be. I'm sure we will all be hearing from Ellie as she moves through this process. Ellie Halliday is passionate about impactful rural development and community engagement with a Master of Science focusing on health and epigenetics and a keen appreciation for relationship building and community. She's been a member of Leonard County Community Justice, supporting youth and families through a restorative justice process. She's helped develop, implement, and deliver evidence-based practice trainings and workshops across the county to community members addressing restorative and trauma-informed practices. She continues to be a volunteer facilitator with Leonard County Community Justice, facilitating restorative forums, addressing the harm caused between accused, victim, and community members. Ellie has also worked with Cornerstone Land and Youth Services since early 2019 as a housing case manager, supporting and advocating for youth experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. And through an evidence-based housing-first approach, Ellie supports youth to access safe, affordable housing through securing financial assistance, navigating support services, registering and continuing education and employment. She also volunteers at the Smith Falls District Youth Center, promoting communication and physical activity, creating conversations and safe spaces around healthy relationships, conflict resolution, and community issues. As an advocate for rural programs, for rural youth, Ellie believes rural settings' greatest strength is their ability to collaborate and come together as a community network for advocacy, innovation, and change. So thank you, Ellie, for stepping up to that program. We look forward to working with you as you move through that process. I'll ask for disclosure of monetary interest. Okay. And before we move any further, I'll also add item 8.4 to our agenda. As we discussed in committee of the whole, the resolution, or so the bylaw regarding the airport hangar. We have made a decision collectively that we want to put a hold on any further hangar leases until we've reviewed the agreement with the Lion Club. And so that has been added as a separate resolution, 8.4. I'll ask you, we'll add that. I'll move on to adoption of minutes, which is with Councillor Brennan. Please.
It is, thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alfred, I believe, that the minutes of the Monday, June 15th, 2020 meeting of council be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Brennan, seconded by Councilor Alford. That the minutes of the Monday, June 15th, 2020 meeting of council be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Reports. I'm going to just go around my screen, starting with Councilor McKenna, please. No reports. Councilor Dwyer. 0 for 2. Councilor Allen, you were next.
I just have a quick one. As you know, I'm a member now of the Cataraqui Trail, Friends of the Cataraqui Trail. And we met, like we were doing virtual meetings, but at our last one, we decided to have our cleanup. Apparently they have a cleanup membership day once a year. And this year we're going to hold it on July 25th. And I will be happy if anyone would like to walk the 4 kilometers with me and help me pick up the debris and just we have a worksheet that we can mark holes that need to be filled or grass that needs to be cut or whatever. So that's on July 25th. If anyone's interested, you can contact me. Thank you.
Councilor Alford.
Not really a report, Your Worship, but just in the last 2 weeks, I want to give a real recognition to the DBA, the Chamber of Commerce, and working with our economic development and tourism people. They have been working very closely together to find innovative ways to promote and support our local businesses. And I'm encouraged because they're such innovative and energetic boards and staff of these two. They've implemented some things that are pretty unique. We haven't had them before, and they are doing everything they can to support the business community in Smithsville. So I really want to recognize the effort they've been putting into this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor Brennan.
Nothing to report other than tomorrow's grocery day, but I will have, I have 2 announcements at the end of the meeting. So.
As we expect, thank you. Councilor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just going to put it out there that we've got our first Police Services Board meeting in a while on July 9th, so this Thursday at 8 a.m. The business plan for the police services is up for review. So if that's something that you're interested in contributing to, we're going to be soliciting for feedback from the public over the next couple of months, and we'll hope to keep that moving forward despite the COVID restrictions.
Great, thank you. I've got a few reports myself. On Tuesday, June 23rd, we had the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Perth and Smithsville District Hospital. Received an update in operation from CEO Barry Guppy and Chief of Staff, Dr. Pete Stoley, as well as reports from the hospital's foundation auxiliaries and the board's various committees. I also attended the board's annual general meeting virtually later that afternoon. We've had the town's emergency control group meetings were on June 25th and July 2nd. This group continues to meet weekly to discuss the ongoing developments regarding the pandemic and to continue to evolve and adapt operations accordingly. On June 25th, I attended the regular monthly board meeting of the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority via teleconference. The board received an update on the RVCA's COVID-19 pandemic response from the general manager. As the province reopens, it maintains its priorities to, of course, protect employee health and safety first and foremost, to protect the health and safety of clients and the public, to maintain delivery of programs and services where possible, and to protect the legal and financial interests of the RVCA. All RVCA buildings continue to remain closed to the public, and all rentals, courses, education programs, and voluntary events remain canceled. Most staff continue to work remotely, and enhanced disinfection protocols continue at all workplaces. The RVCA has imposed a limit of 1 person per vehicle, and vehicles continue to be assigned to avoid sharing. Obviously, the use of PPE continues. Most outdoor recreational amenities have opened at the RVCA conservation areas, including picnic areas, shelters, benches, lookout, boat launches, and beaches. One-way directional signage has been posted on trails and washrooms and change rooms. One-way signage has been posted on trails. Washrooms and change rooms continue to be closed as the RVCA does not have the capacity to sanitize and disinfect these in accordance with current public health guidelines. And unfortunately, the traditional day camps at both the Baxter and Cooling Mountain conservation areas have been canceled, but that may be reconsidered in August, depending on how things progress with the province. The Mayor's Task Force for Economic Recovery did meet June 26th and will meet again virtually this Friday. And that's it for my report. We have a number of bylaws, and our first is with Councillor Dwyer, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls at its meetings held on the 1st, 15th, and 22nd days of June be received and read a first time and taken and read a second time.
Thank you. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Brennan. The bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls at its meetings held on the 1st, 15th, and 22nd days of June be received, read a first time, and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Discussion. Councillor Dwyer.
This is an administrative matter that we process at the beginning of every month to adopt the proceedings of all of our previous meetings.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a third reading, please?
That a bylaw, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls at its meetings held on the 1st, 15th, and 22nd days of June be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10161-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Brennan, the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls as meetings held on the 1st, 15th, and 22nd days of June, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10161-2020. All in favor? Carried. Councillor McKenna, you have the next bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan. That a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 6080-94, respecting the property municipally known as 65 Chambers Street, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Brennan. The bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 6080-94, respecting the property municipally known as 65 Chambers Street, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion. Councillor McKenna.
Yes, as mentioned in the committee of the whole, our committees and communities and the proponents have worked together collaboratively to ensure that this beautiful streetscape along Chambers Street had no cars parked in the front lawn. And they've added some infill housing. And through this zoning bylaw change, we've been able to accommodate that and meet the required parking as well.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to note that I think there's a missed opportunity in this with the servicing for the sanitary sewer. I think as much as we've gotten an engineering report, as I'm learning at my day job now, we get doing engineering reviews. Engineering consultants are a lot like lawyers, where they get paid by groups to give a professional opinion. I don't know if this report has accounted for the units that have been added, maybe potentially without the proper approval process up the street. And I'm not sure if it takes into account what would have caused the blockage in the past. So that being said, I think this is a good example of where if we had these reports a little bit further in advance, the property owner would not have to be sending an email out 27 minutes before the start of the meeting, and we could just have a better discussion at the table. So I like the compromise. I like that the parking spots are in the back. I like the density, but I don't fully understand why there's not an opportunity to do a gravity-fed sanitary sewer to Center Street, and I just think it's a missed opportunity that will have to be addressed in the future when this line eventually fails.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Brennan.
I think we should have a recorded vote. I request a recorded vote, please.
Okay. You can have a third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 6080-94, respecting the property municipally known as 65 Chambers Street, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10162-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Brennan. The bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 6080-94, respecting the property municipally known as 65 Chambers Street. It now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10162-2020. Recorded vote has been requested. I'll turn it over to the clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. If council members could give me a yay or nay respecting bylaw 10162-2020. Councillor Alfred?
Yay.
Councillor Allen?
Yay.
Councillor Brennan?
Yay.
Councillor Dwyer?
Yay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
Councillor McGuire?
Nay.
And Mayor Panko?
Yay.
Carried.
Thank you. On to our next bylaw, which we go back to Councillor McGuire, please.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. Just a second for me to pull it back up here. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alfred that a bylaw to authorize execution of a hangar lease agreement with Ontario 273-9345 Corporation Maurizio Penna, respecting site BW-2, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a hangar lease agreement with Ontario 273-9345 Corporation, in brackets, Maurizio Penna, respecting site BW-2, be received, read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor McGuire?
So this bylaw is to show our support for the Smith Falls Flying Club to sign a 21-year lease at $100 a year with Mr. Penna to build a hangar on the site. So after much discussion that we'll get into in a resolution about the agreement with the Smith Falls Flying Club, consensus was that we'll proceed with this, but it'll be the last of these bylaws until the agreement with the Flying Club has been amended.
Thank you. Any further discussion? A third reading, please.
Thank you. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a hangar lease agreement with Ontario 273-9345 Corporation, Maurizio Penna, respecting site BW-2, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10163-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to authorize the execution of a hangar lease agreement with Ontario 273-9345 Corporation, in brackets, Maurizio Penna, respecting site BW-2, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10163-2020. All in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Allen, you're up next.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire. Bellamy Farm Townhouse Site Plan, Blocks 11, 13, 15, Bylaw 10164-2020. That a bylaw to authorize execution of 3 site plan control agreements with 1686994 Ontario Inc., Parkview Homes, respecting the properties described as blocks 11, 13, and 15 of Plan 27M83 and known locally as part of the Bellamy Farm subdivision, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McGuire. The bylaw to authorize execution of 3 site plan control agreements with 1686994 Ontario Inc., in brackets, Parkview Homes, respecting the properties described as blocks 11, 13, and 15 of Plan 27M-83 and known locally as part of the Bellamy Farm subdivision. Be received at a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor Allen?
Yes, Senior Planner Grenke brought this site plan for Bellamy Farm Townhouses to us tonight to execute 3 site plan agreements for blocks 11, 13, 15 as part of the Bellamy Farm subdivision. In 2018, the town gave final approval for the first phase, and in 2019 approved the first block, 3 units in August, another 3, and in November, another 4. This application requests approval for blocks 11 and 15 on the north side of Ferrara Drive and block 13, which is the first block to be constructed on Staples Boulevard, which is exciting. As you remember, we have a naming policy and former Mayor Staples was chosen as one of the street names. So this is the first development on that boulevard. There's 17 units, and we need to pass the bylaw tonight to enter into the site plan agreements for those 3 blocks. It's a good news story for sure.
Any further comment? Perhaps we should have former Mayor Staples over to do a bit of a groundbreaking on that section.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, I'll call the question. Third reading, I moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to authorize execution of 3 site plan control agreements with 1686994 Ontario Inc. in brackets Parkview Homes, respecting the properties described as blocks 11, 13, and 15 of Plan 27M-83 and known locally as part of the Bellamy Park subdivision. They now with a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10164-2020. All in favor? That's carried. That's it for our bylaws. Councillor Alford, you have our first motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna. The council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls support an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities (FCM) under the Municipal Asset Management Program for the Road and Sidewalks Assessment Service, offered by Local Authority Services / StreetScan Canada ULC, totaling $33,994 net HST.
Thank you. And discussion, Councillor Alford?
Yes, Your Worship, this was discussed earlier at Committee of the Whole, and the town will apply for this grant that will allow Public Works to purchase equipment that allows for an objective assessment of our roads and sidewalks and develop a long-term strategy at mere cost to the municipality of $6,800, which is actually 20% of the total amount the equipment will cost.
Thank you. Any further comment? Actually, I believe we're purchasing a service rather than the actual facility.
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna. Federation of Canadian Municipalities Asset Management Funding 2020. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls support an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in brackets FCM under the Municipal Asset Management Program for Road and Sidewalk Assessment Services offered by the Local Authority Services in brackets LAS / StreetScan Canada ULC, totaling $33,994 net HST. All in favor? That's carried. Councillor McKenna, you have the next motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford. Whereas on August 3rd, 2016, the Government of Canada announced the terms of reference and appointed commissioners to begin the inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women. And whereas 3 years later, on June 3rd, 2019, the final report was published, including 231 recommendations within 2 volumes of text. And whereas on May 26th of this year, it was announced that the release of this plan would be delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls support the resolution passed by Kirkland Lake and request the Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, Carolyn Bennett, to release the steps her office is taking to ensure this action plan will be completed in a timely fashion. Recognizing the government received the recommendations from the inquiry a year ago, and the country deserves a cohesive national action plan to deal with the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women across the country. And further that, this resolution will be shared with Member of Parliament Scott Reid, Provincial Member of Parliament Randy Hillier, and all 443 other municipalities within Ontario through AMO, so that they may also add their municipality in support of this request.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Your Worship. We talked about this earlier in the Committee of the Whole, and I would encourage the public and those watching to go to the website for the national, the website for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women to read the full report, the 231 recommendations. It's a very accessible document, and think about how they as citizens might be involved in ensuring the action plan gets carried forward. And I thank my our colleagues in Kirkland Lake for raising this, the municipal council up there.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford. National Action Plan on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Whereas on August 3rd, 2016, the Government of Canada announced the terms of reference and appointed commissioners to begin the inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Whereas 3 years later, on June 3rd, 2019, the final report was published, including 231 recommendations within 2 volumes of text. Whereas on May 26th of this year, it was announced the release of the plan would be delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls support the resolution passed by Kirkland Lake and request the Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, Carolyn Bennett, to release the steps her office has taken to ensure this action plan will be completed in a timely fashion, recognizing the government received the recommendations from the inquiry a year ago, and the country deserves a cohesive national action plan to deal with the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women across the country. And further, that this resolution be shared with Member of Parliament Scott Reid, Provincial Member of Parliament Randy Hillier, and all 443 other municipalities within Ontario through AMO, so they may also add their municipalities in support of this request. All in favor? It's carried. And Councillor McKenna, you have the next resolution, 8.3.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire. Supporting resolution leads Grenville and Lanark District Health Unit regional approach to face mask coverings. That the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls supports the Medical Officer of Health for Leeds, Grenville, and Lanark District Health Unit on the regional approach to use the face mask coverings / masks in enclosed places within their jurisdiction. And that evidence shows that wearing a mask or face covering such as a bandana, scarf, or cloth that covers the mouth and nose can help contain the spread of COVID-19 when used in combination with staying home when ill, frequent hand washing, and practicing physical distancing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the council and staff, the Town of Smith Falls, will work with our health unit to promote and educate businesses and the public on this important approach.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, Your Worship. The evidence is mounting throughout the pandemic. Initially, we weren't sure about the efficacy of the general public wearing it, but I think the jury's out. Science is pointing to the implication of wearing a face mask in tight quarters or in public places. It not only prevents others from getting it, but it helps prevent you from getting it, the COVID virus. So certainly the municipality is encouraging the general public and businesses to take up and follow the lead of the public health unit in encouraging the use of face masks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor McGuire. Supporting resolution leads Grenville and Lanark District Health Unit regional approach to face covering / masks. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls supports the Medical Officer of Health from the Leeds, Grenville, and Lanark District Health Unit on the regional approach to the use of face covering / masks in enclosed public places within their jurisdiction. And that evidence shows that wearing a mask or face covering such as a bandana, scarf, or cloth that covers the mouth and nose can help contain the spread of COVID-19 when used in combination with staying home and ill, frequent hand washing, and practicing physical distancing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council and staff of the Town of Smith Falls will work with our health unit to promote and educate businesses and the public on this important approach. All in favor? That's carried. And our final resolution is with Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dwyer. Whereas the Council of the Town of Smith Falls wish to review the 1992 agreement in place with the Smith Falls Flying Club, and whereas Council of the Town of Smith Falls must approve via bylaw new hangar lease agreements, now therefore be it resolved that Smith Falls Town Council will not approve any further hangar lease agreements and removes the delegated authority of the mayor and clerk to authorize lease transfer agreements until the 1992 lease agreement is updated and approved by bylaw.
Thank you. Discussion, Councilor Brennan.
Well, we just discussed this, and this is attached to the new hangar that's going into the airport. And as we all know now, the agreement is 1992, and the commission has started discussions and getting information from the Flying Club to review it. So until that time, we won't go forward with any other ones. This one was in the hopper for a while, so we respected that. But going forward, we're going to review the agreement.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councilor Brennan, second by Councilor Alfred, correct?
But the Dwyer is.
Oh, sorry, Dwyer?
Yeah.
My mistake.
Okay.
Flying Club lease agreements. Whereas Council of the Town of Smith Falls wish to review the 1992 agreement in place with the Smith Falls Flying Club, whereas Council of the Town of Smith Falls must approve via bylaw new hangar lease agreements. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Smith Falls Town Council will not approve any further hangar lease agreements and removes the delegated authority of the mayor and clerk to authorize transfer lease agreements until the 1992 lease agreement is updated and approved by bylaw. All in favor? That's carried. Inquiries or announcements? It just wouldn't seem like a regular virtual meeting, but
I've really had a ball with this, and I think that going forward, I'd like to challenge my colleagues to take turns maybe, and we'll maybe, Your Worship, we could start with you and then go alphabetically after that. So if with your agreement, you can be next. And I was challenged. I was challenged last week to come up with a specific gender, so I think I've done that, and I think it's timely. I'll start by saying this individual, who is a woman, was awarded by the town for 32 years of volunteer service, and also she was highly involved with the lawn mowing club, and it really. The other day I drove by the club and it's not being used, and it broke my heart because you and I think Councillor Allen enjoyed some spirited games, and I was looking forward to doing it with this council. But anyway, she played lawn bowling for 65 years. And in 1966, she won the Lady Alexandria Trophy, and for which it connected to lawn bowling, for which she had an invitation to tea at Government House with the Governor General. She played 65 years. I'll leave it at that because I know you're going to know who it is. So I think Peter knows.
Yeah, I believe I know. And that was a great one, Jay, by the way. Harriet Peterson is, I think, and born and raised in Portland, but settled in Smith Falls.
Yeah. Who sadly we just lost, and
Yes.
And so I have great memories of Harriet and Billy and Rosie, and the thing I remember about Harriet was she worked the canteen at the arena, and we were kids and we used to drive her crazy, and anyway, she was a lot of fun. So that's your question for today. A good one, Peter.
And I would walk up to the canteen, she'd always have the hockey cards ready for me. She knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And maybe she embedded swamp water, I'm not sure, but she certainly was good at making it.
Yeah. And her just reading the old bed. And then I remember her husband was highly involved in minor hockey and coaching and whatnot. So, and Billy was a great player.
Well done, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other announcements? Okay, I'll ask for adjournment, which is with Councillor Alfred, please.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:31 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alfred, seconded by Councillor McKenna. This council adjourns proceedings at 7:31 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.